at the end, and we'll engage those as a collective. But without further ado, I'm happy to go ahead and pass the mic on to Artis to take us into part 2 of our 4-part artificial intelligence webinar series, brought to you by the Lumina Foundation, Council of Post-Secondary Education, the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative, Element 451, and Mara Bridge Consulting Solutions. Take it away, Artis.
All right, hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. Just like Errol said, today we're going to be focusing on AI skills for enrollment planning leaders. And we're going to take a quick look at, again, how we think about AI and productivity and kind of some of the things that, we work through every single day. This is the second of the series. The first one was around making sense of AI, around AI literacy. And like Errol said, we're going to focus on skills today. Part 3 will be next week, focusing around AI ethics and some of the privacy concerns that come around. And then the last one will be around AI applications, focusing specifically on what are those applications, what are some of the platforms, or some of the things that can help you today in your enrollment management as you're working in your institutions today. So, just to kind of I received this question quite a bit, and it's like, is AI going to take our jobs? And there's this fear that's happening around on AI being coming in very fast and basically being able to do a lot of the things that we're able to do from a marketing, writing, content perspective. But there's a little bit of a fear every time a technology wave comes around. And I wanted to show you this. 60% of today's workers are employed in occupations that didn't exist in 1940. So imagine that, the occupations, we hadn't even thought about all the occupations and all the types of jobs that we're going to be doing 80 years from now. So it's the same thing right now, right? As we go through this technology transformation, jobs are going to be changing, evolving. What we do tomorrow is going to be changing and evolving. And that's partly why we're having these conversations today around AI literacy or in AI skills specifically. And with this, we have an opportunity to move really fast. So, just as a quick, you can feel free to post this in your chat or maybe even kind of think it out loud a little bit. But so how many of you use Gen AI for work? And this is, I have some numbers in here from the Pew Research Center. But if you think about it, 66% of all Americans have heard of ChatGPT. That means that there's actually still a third of folks that have not even heard of ChatGPT out there. And that's one of the most popularly used tools around generative AI for productivity. Only 23% have actually used ChatGPT, and this is adult Americans. And then 5% have used it for work. So you're going to be in, once you start using some of these tools, you're going to be in that small minority, which is getting bigger every month. However, there's still a lot of opportunity here for us to adopt it in our day-to-day work. So there's a lot of folks out there that don't have that. They haven't used it yet, or they haven't taken advantage of it yet. And this reminds me of this cartoon where you think about, and it's like the first use of AI in work. It's you start thinking about it's like, well, AI can turn a single bullet point into a really long email I can pretend I wrote. And then on the other side, somebody else can say, well, AI can make a single bullet point into a really, really long email I can pretend I read, right? So it's essentially what we're thinking is that AI can kind of shrink content down, can summarize, can do a lot of those things, but we feel that it's a sum zero game, and it's not, right? So it's not a sum zero game. It's actually a lot bigger than that. And when we think about kind of the volume and what we're doing every single day, look, I feel exhausted in terms of answering and responding and writing and kind of thinking and doing all of the content generation. And I don't know if you've seen this, but I feel like Jim Carrey in Bruce Almighty most of the time.
Okay, I had to have made some kind of a dent by now. Oh, come on! Oh.
So I don't know how many of you feel that way, but the stuff just keeps on coming and coming, and our day-to-day work is quite a bit around answering messages and responding to emails and so on and so forth. So in that case, AI can help, right? It can help around productivity, it can help us in a lot of different areas. Last time we talked a little bit about productivity, but I want to rephrase this again, and I want to come back to it one more time. So when we think about productivity in our day-to-day work, we think about content generation, which is a huge part of it. But then the second part is knowledge discovery. So like, how do we find content? We're spending most of the time on Google trying to find content. We're spending time on our sites, asking peers on finding information. And that's a really, really big area of possibility for us. And the last, it's actionable insights. How do we work with data, and how do we kind of gather information around data? So that's another area that's really important for us to think about, and how do we work with data, not just analysts, but how do we do that, right? How do we understand it? How do we read it? And we'll touch base on some of that today for sure. When we expand this content generation, it's again around personalization. How can we take a piece of content and deliver it to someone else and repurpose it? How can we kind of personalize the same piece of information for different mediums? Building campaign strategy and building content, email marketing. How do we create that? We do a lot of this as marketers and enrollment experts. Search engine optimization. In some cases, we're responsible for our websites or program websites, or even content that we're writing for the web. Idea generation is a big one. We again sit around in groups and start thinking about ideas. Well, AI can be very, very powerful around that idea generation. So we'll kind of touch base on some of that today. Research and data analysis. Data analysis is something that folks want to stay away from because it requires Excel or requires kind of some data skills, but we can kind of go in and take a look at that as well. So when we think about AI today, and we think about the most direct use or some of the big apps around AI, we're talking about ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude that are some of the main ones. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep.
Mary, I think your microphone is on. If you could mute it, please. Thank you so much. All right, we're good to go, Artis.
Yeah, oh, perfect. So when we think about the ChatGPT, and we start thinking about content generation, if you need to write, edit, summarize, analyze anything, you should just use ChatGPT first, right? And we'll kind of take a look at those three different chatbots, but think about, maybe we can just jump really quickly. Let me go back to my grid here. So we think about email writing, and email writing, again, no one likes to write emails. So AI can write and rewrite personalized, effective emails very quickly. It can enhance communications with students and, of course, with your colleagues as well. Repurposing content, we started talking a little bit about this, but transforming existing content that can be fresh, relevant, engaging for new context. Like, for example, you can take a full letter that's full of legalese or to the faculty, and they can be really transformed and engaging it to an email that can be sent to a student, or vice versa, right? So you can take some policies and a few bullet points and then kind of transform it into something that's a little bit more formal. You talk about web and marketing content. You kind of can craft compelling web content and marketing material that can really resonate with your audiences, because now AI can kind of rewrite those for that particular audiences with your brand voice in your institution. And then the other one is like digesting faculty research. A lot of times we're asked to kind of put into bullet points or summarizations, and we talk to a student on what a faculty member is doing, what a department is doing, what a program is all about. And sometimes getting that research and understanding it and how it applies to, let's say, a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, or even a parent can be really, really important to kind of make that connection there. I was talking to someone yesterday whose son was going to college, and actually, I hadn't heard this before, but they actually had a spreadsheet spreadsheet full of all of the criteria that they were looking for in a college, and they were looking for specific programs and specific outcomes that they wanted to go into a specific area. And it was really, really hard for them to figure out what that was from the school's website, how to find out the courses that they were they were trying to find out if they could take those courses, or if they could connect with a faculty, or maybe even a program that will allow them to do that kind of research afterwards. So really, really important. Of course, you have students who don't really care about that, but you have a lot of students today that are very, very intrigued, and they're very into it. So when we think about kind of the tools, ChatGPT, we're going to be using that today. And you can go to chatgpt.com or just chat.openai.com. So both of these are available. And ChatGPT is great for really complex tasks. It's using some of the most advanced models today. Well, as of spring of 2024, there's probably going to be GPT-5 coming out in the summer or soon thereafter. But it's very, very powerful. It's the most up-to-date right now. We also have Google Gemini. So if you're in the Google ecosystem, Google Gemini is really, really great as well. It has up-to-date information, and it connects to the internet really quickly for great research as well, right? So he has access to that internet to retrieve content from URLs. They also can connect to some of your Gmail, YouTube, that you can do YouTube summaries, and you can ask about videos with Google Gemini. So really great tool there. And then Claude.ai. Claude is from a company called Anthropic. The same alumni who worked at Google and same alumni who worked at OpenAI now had their own company, and they're building very, very powerful models, but they really great for writing. It is a great context window, meaning that you can throw in a whole PDF, like a program PDF, or a whole catalog at it and start asking questions about that PDF. You can throw in images and things like that, but the writing is really good. So we tend to use it here at Element 451. We tend to use Claude for some of our writing because it's very, very good around that. So let me see if I can, when we look at this, I have them open over here. So this is chatgpt.com. So chatgpt.com. The interface is pretty simple, but I do have the pro version, and that one comes with that GPT-4 model. So if you're thinking about, or if you have access to it, like this is the paid version, I would highly recommend that you get the paid version. The content that it generates and the capabilities are really, really different and very high. So if your school or institution has access to it, or you can get it as an enterprise version, highly recommend that. Here's gemini.google.com. That's different. Again, you can kind of have a number of different things that you can do in here, from image generation to kind of searching for YouTube and so on and so forth. And this is Claude, right? So they're all the interfaces, they look very similar. It's just around the prompting now. It's like, well, what do you ask it, and how do you ask it, and how do you do those? How do you communicate with it? And that's really what we're going to get to, right? And then that's in order to make sure that we get the best output, we need to understand kind of what these are, right? So at the end of the day, you might be asking, what ChatGPT? Some people call it chat. First of all, GPT is a very weird kind of technical name, which stands for generative pre-trained transformer. It basically means that we've trained it quite before. And then ChatGPT is actually a chatbot, right? So it's really a chatbot that's developed by OpenAI, but it's based on these large language models, right? On GPT 3.5 and GPT-4 large language models. And we need to understand how they work in order for us to kind of gain a understanding, or to gain some mastery over how to use them very well, right? So the better you can prompt them, the better you can ask them questions, and you can work with them, the better results you're going to get, and less vanilla and less kind of question, answers and output that you're like, well, I know that's AI, right? But there's a lot of that you can do to get to a really, really good place. And in order to do that, it's like, well, let's understand what these large language models are, right? So at the end of the day, we start thinking about The large language models, if you remember from our last, session, they're actually generative AI models, right? So they create new content based on the a piece of information that you get, a piece of text in this case. So you give it some text. So the idea is that a language model is that you give it a prefix or a prompt, right? And then it guesses what's the next word is going to be, right? So if you say dog, if you put dog in there, it says the most probable word after dog is going to be barks, right? And then if you say, okay, now continue that process, guess the next word after that, dog barks loudly in the park. So you keep going and going and going, and then eventually it produces something that is very coherent, right? So all it's doing is just guessing the next word and the next word and the next word and the next word, basically on the probability. And that's really what we're going to be focusing today, to understand how that works in order for us to tell it and to position it and to guide it in a specific way to get what we want out of it. So if you think about it, there's these base models. It's like if you want to predict the next word based on training data, it's trained on the whole internet, all the public information out there, these large models. So here's an example where you can ask it, once upon a time, there was a unicorn, and then it's guessing that lived in a forest with all her unicorn friends, right? It makes sense. So that's kind of a story. And then you ask it a question. It's like, what is the capital of France? And then, the next thing is like, we as humans would expect, well, it's Paris, right? But in this case, it's like the most probable thing is another question. It's like, what's France's largest city? What's France's population? So this raw capabilities of the LLM, now we need to fine tune them, and we need to specialize them for different things. Think about this as you're training a dog, right? You're training a dog, and you're getting a dog in, and you're trying to train them. And a good kind of canine citizen, you treat it very similar. Like you can say sit, come, down, stay. So these are basic commands that you're training them on, and that applies through all the kind of all the dogs out there. However, if you want to have specialized training for that dog, for example, a police dog or a guide dog or a hunting dog, you're going to go and have specialized training for it, and you're going to fine tune on top of the basic commands and the basic training. You're going to specialize them and fine tune them, and you're going to spend time and guide that dog and give him that additional context. At the end of the day, it's a dog, right? It has the same fundamental capabilities. It's just that you're fine tuning them for a specific use case. And in this case, we tune these models, we fine tune them, and that's what OpenAI does, and that's what Google does, in order to for them to follow instructions, right? They're called instruction tunes large language models. So the way that it works is that this fine tuning on these instructions, and actually they say, okay, we're going to fine tune them on good attempts, and then so they can follow those instructions. So in this case, they're going out and they're having hundreds or millions of examples of what are good examples that is supposed to be, what's the output of a good example. If you ask a question, you get an answer. If you ask to write a poem, you actually get a poem. So they build all these hundreds or thousands of examples, and then they fine tune the model based on that. So in this case, then those models are trained to be helpful, honest, and harmless. So essentially, when somebody asks, how do I build a bomb? The model is not going to tell you that. It's going to say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that, or, whatever it is. So it's because of this fine tuning that happens, right? It's because they've been now given good examples, and a lot of those good examples, and that's what they're basing their output on. So in this case, then, if we're asking a question, what is the capital of France? It will answer you, capital of France is Paris. So it needed to be fine-tuned for instructions. And that's where now we can come in and say, oh, it makes a lot of sense, right? So now we know how to actually work with these models in kind of this instruction-based way. And if you think about it, the whole idea of writing these good prompts in order to get the best output, it's called prompt engineering, right? So us, in order to figure out what the questions are and how to ask them and what the context is and all of that. So prompt engineering is really that process of crafting and optimizing prompts to elicit these very specific high quality responses from these large language models. And really, this is an important task because over the next, even over the next couple of years, prompt engineering or prompting is going to be very important, right? So learning this skill now will be important. It's going to get, easier and easier as these tools get incorporated into your day-to-day tools and workflows. And we'll touch base on that during our fourth kind of series on how, prompting is great right now, but eventually we're not going to need it anymore. But it's really, really good over the next few years, right? And I do have I've built a prompt engineering course that goes through some of the things that we're going to talk about today into a lot more detail. And this is a course that usually it's available. And let me actually, so if you want to grab this QR code, and if you want to grab that code over here, and I'm going to have this on at the end of the session as well, but it's E451-friends, and then the URL to the course can be grabbed from this QR code in here. So I'm going to leave it on for just a second in here, a couple more minutes, but we'll share some of this content afterwards as well. We'll share that link, but this is just available for you guys right now. But when you go to, let me open that up. So it's part of the Enrollify community, but essentially I have a whole course in here that goes in, introduces everything, prompting, prompt engineering, the basics of prompting, the frameworks, and so on and so forth. We're going to go through very quickly some of that today. But again, that's kind of what you're going to get. And as part of it, you're also going to get the prompts themselves, right? You're going to get prompts, and you're going to get the examples. So it's a really good course that focuses specifically for prompting around higher education marketing and higher education enrollment, specifically those particular use cases. All right, so let's go back here. And hopefully you've gotten that link. Like I said, we'll share it again afterwards as well. So let's dive into it, right? So we're diving into it. We're talking about, okay, what's anatomy of a good prompt? Like, how do we think about a prompt? What do we think is a good prompt in order for it to get what we need out of these models? And of course, people can say, yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. But when you boil it down, there's just a couple of concepts that are very, very simple to think about, right? And we have them into three different components, right? We have the intent of that prompt, we have the directions, and then we have a context, right? And I'll show you how those build up on top of each other right now. So the first one is the intent. It's like the what, right? What is the instruction? Remember, it's instruction-tuned models. These models are tuned for instructions. They're taking instructions and they're completing, they're doing stuff, right? So instructions, it's basically this intent. It's like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to do? Right. And in this case, I have, a question in here. Recommend a marketing strategy for recruiting students to the AI program. And I mean, that's a simple one. But a lot of folks don't go beyond this one, right? So when you think about the intent, this is the intent or the tasks. It's probably the most important part of the prompt. It instructs that LLM what the goal of the task is that you're trying to ask it to do. And you need to articulate the end goal in here, right? What's your end goal? Remember that we had in our previous slides, I said, if you want to write, summarize, define, recommend, or analyze something, go to ChatGPT. And the intent here or the task should start with some kind of an action verb. Think about, again, write, summarize, define, recommend, analyze. And then we can have multiple intents in the one prompt, but for right now, we'll keep it a little, but you can do that with GPT-4, which is better at those more complex tasks. So let's take an example in here, and we're going to go to ChatGPT, and I'm going to open that up. and we're going to go take a look at an example. By the way, last time we discussed, and I very quickly showed off prompts.element451.com. This is a collection that I have put together of a lot of different prompts, so you can copy and paste them directly from here. It's a great resource. It's publicly available. Because I've given so many of these webinars and live sessions and trainings, I've made these available for everybody, so you can copy and adopt them to yours, including things like styling, from writing styles to email content, basically a whole editor bot so you can analyze your content, to writing, basically kind of putting on your own style guide, subject lines, and so on and so forth. So you have quite a bit of stuff in here, and we're going to pull a few of these from here specifically. But let me go through and actually go through that particular use case that we just talked about, the AI component. So all right, so let me go to ChatGPT here. And rather than me typing it, I actually just copied and pasted. So recommend the marketing strategy for recruiting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see that. It's going to tell me a few things: leverage marketing content. It's going to go through, but it's not very, again, it's okay, but it's not great, right? It's very generic in a lot of different cases. So what we can do then is we can continue, and let's ask it some more, another one, right? So here's another one that I can go in and say, somebody can come in and ask it, write 5 attention-grabbing subject lines for email. And it will go ahead and write those, but it's going to be, again, a little bit more generic because it doesn't, well, it picked up the AI program from the top, but there will be a little bit more generic here as well. So we go back to our prompting section here, and now we give it some direction, right? So the first thing that we told it was to come up with a marketing strategy. Great. It gave us a whole bunch of bullet points in here, and it said, okay, follow this and do that. I'm like, oh man. So I wish we had a little bit more. The second part is, okay, I want to have it very specific. I want to say include the target audience, the messaging guidelines, campaigns, and the measurement metrics, right? So think about this. Like, the intent is like you're asking somebody who has a lot of knowledge to do something, but they don't know how to do it. They need better directions. And now you're like, okay, this is how I want it. This is the directions that you need to follow to do that. And when you think about directions, this is the area where you can prompt the LLM you can give it examples, you can give it best practices, you can give it and tell frameworks. It's like, okay, you can use for example, in the marketing side, the AIDA framework: attention, interest, desire, and action. You can do fear of missing out framework. You can do it step by step. You can provide a tone and voice for your institution, or you can even do controlling the output format. It's like, what do I want it as a bullet list? Do I want it as an HTML or code or whatever? So all of that part is in the directions, right? So remember, we have intent, the most important part, and now how to actually do it. So if we look at this, then we can go back and say, okay, so let's take a look at that example. But now we're going to go ahead and add a couple more. We're going to add the directions in here as well. So I'm copying and pasting it. And let's see what it comes back with. It's like, okay, here we go. So now you're seeing that in order to have a marketing strategy, you do need a target. What's the target audience, the messaging guidelines, what's the campaign that you're suggesting? So it's coming up with that. So a little bit different from the prior one, right? Because now we have told it, hey, here's the framework. Here's how we want it to look like, right? And it's able to actually do that and follow our directions here because we've told it what we're expecting or what we want. So in this case, around campaigns, saying digital campaigns, social media, email marketing. We're talking about partnerships with high schools, universities, tech companies for the AI components, content marketing with blog posts and webinars and workshops. And we look at measurement metrics as well. And it's finding out like lead generation measurements, what are the numbers, engagement rates, conversion rates, the ROI on analysis. So, okay, this is really, really good. It's quite getting there. But then we need to provide, the last part is context, right? And when we talk about context is what is the, in this case, we can say act as a higher education enrollment marketing expert. So remember that we're guiding it through, we're kind of positioning it. So we're saying, okay, here's the context that you're in, act as this type of expert, right? And then here's the thing that I want you to do, and here's how you do it. So think about these three things together. Act as an expert in this particular thing that I want you to do. Here's the task and here's the directions. So when you think about context as basically it's like, what's the user's background? And we talked about experts or whatever it is, like you work at school X, you're always polite, you do all these different things, all the context, all the background information. What's the success look like? You're always strive to make people happy, or you're always strive to get the most engagements out of somebody. So all of those pieces are very important as part of that context. And then again, the environment they're in, and then assuming that persona. You're a marketing expert in this case. So that's the context, right? And when we check this again, let's go back here and let's see if we can kind of put it all together, right? So then here is a prompt that, again, it's not very long. We can continue and build this and make it even longer with more context and more directions. But at the end of the day, this is just an example, right, that we're showing in what's that prompt anatomy. So here we go. So right now, it's going to, of course, give us the same thing. But because you're an enrollment and marketing expert, it's actually, if you look at some of these stuff, the messaging guidelines have changed a little bit. It talks about empowering through education, innovative learning, career advancements, talking more like bubbling up social media, email marketing again. So enrollment rates. So remember when we talked about lead generation in here, now we're talking about enrollment rates. So it changed how even the metrics, right? Because it's enrollment, it's around enrollment that we told you're an enrollment expert, right? Thinking about webinar attendance or engagement metrics. So this is just a little example, right, where with just some differences and some additions to that main prompt, we now can see that the output is different, and in a lot of cases is better, right? Because it's actually what we want out of it. We can go into a lot more detail, and that's why we have our again, this prompt engineering here, that you can go in and add a lot more stuff to it. All right, so let's continue. One of the things that's really important is like, these are one-shot prompts. So you give it and you're done. But these LLMs are really good at continuing a conversation. So that builds up, right? So this progressive prompting is probably the best way that you can start to get really good at using these AIs. You don't have to put everything all at once. And this is a technique that you can kind of continue to build that intent, that background. You can continue to the directions, right? So you can put the context, the what, the why, and the how as kind of part of this building those prompts together. And when we look at our prompting here, we have a couple. Essentially, I have a bunch of prompts in here that think about. Let's go to this one. Here we go. So it is admitted student yield time. And for those of us, it can be a difficult time right now with all the FAFSA, kerfuffles that are happening, and we are past May 1, so there's just a lot of nervousness out there. But we're in that admitted yield kind of stage right now. And here's kind of a progressive prompt that we think about admitted yield. So again, act as a higher education enrollment experts, and then ask it a question. What are some strategies for admitted yield? So let's do that. Let's go through that and let's play that out. So we're going to copy and paste that, and we're going to play that out. This is interesting. What ChatGPT and especially the GPT-4 has done is that they're providing you now with some additional features that they're building on top. So rather than just getting one response, they're kind of telling you two responses in here. So this is a little bit longer. This is a little bit shorter. I'm going to pick the shorter one. Let's stick with the shorter stuff for right now. But here's some of the strategies, some tried and true strategies. Personalized communication, of course, we know that. Engagement through events, both virtual and in-person events for admitted student days, webinars, faculty, student Q&A, parent involvement, effective use of social media, financial incentives. Of course, that's a FAFSA and the, packages that we're sending, and then strong onboarding programs. Again, so we can kind of continue on this a little bit more and start building on top of that. And it's like, okay, that's great. So what are some effective email marketing strategies for building relationship with accepted students and promoting? I'm going to go in here and say Element University, right? Can you suggest some email templates or examples? So remember that when I said GPT-4 is really good at multi-intent stuff. And in this case, it's doing like, we're asking it two different questions. What are some strategies? And then can you suggest email templates or examples? So let's continue with that. But because we're progressively prompting, we already have this context in here. So now we can go in and act. Actually, let's stop this because I copied the wrong thing. And let me go back here. All right. So here we go. So effective email marketing can significantly enhance engagement for accepted students. All right. So here's some of the strategies: segmentation and personalization, tailor messages based on students' program of interest, extracurricular. These are things that are not very enlightening, right? Because we already know this. But what becomes really useful here is that there could be some things that we might not have thought about. But anyway, so these are strategies that we probably know, probably don't. But here's the things that we asked it again, like email templates. So let's build some email templates for us. Welcome to your future. It sounds very similar to some of the things that we sent out there for sure. Congratulations. So it's writing a message. It's actually including some of the placeholder things from you. Here's the second one, a template 2, financial aid information. Here's another one around final decision reminders. So it understands, because we told it what the context was, enrollment marketing, what are strategies for admitted yield. We kind of continuing this process. So it has all of that context above. It's using that to kind of guide the LLM around this progressive prompting. So let's continue a couple more, right? One of them is create an SMS campaign to keep the student engaged, use emojis, and then no hashtags. So let's use that one really quickly here. Okay, so that's one. So it's using emojis. It's not using any hashtags. Hashtags usually, it kind of starts, sometimes it pops those because it thinks like it's writing for Twitter, or it thinks like it's writing for social media. So here's some of the messages. Again, you can continue and have a conversation, make them shorter, add, make sure that you add something, make them funny, right? So I can say, make them funny. Make them funnier. And in this case, we're going to continue and it's going to do that. So let's look at this. Student name, welcome to Element U. We're the only thing higher than our buildings is our academic standards. Any questions? Fire away because of the Element University. Here's another one. Just a friendly reminder from your future alma mater, accept your offer by April 15th or miss out on being someone with us. TikTok. So these are not bad at all, right? These are pretty good. And the funnier part are like lighthearted jokes around your future alma mater and TikTok, component in here. So we can continue on this, and we can kind of start asking a few more questions. But let's, we can go in and ask it for building a full detailed marketing plan to increase the yield. And then we can tell it you have access to email, SMS, social media, ads. So let's do that really quickly in here, and let's see what we get. All right, so now we're actually building a whole campaign. So rather than doing it the one shot like before, you can see that we're asking very similar stuff, but we're changing it a little bit, and we're asking it, and we're letting it produce more content, more content, more content in here. So let's continue down. Here we go. So it's building an email campaign. It's kind of outlining what those emails are going to be, and SMS alerts, social media content, social ads, website content. And then it's putting together a timeline of these activities, right? So basically February to April and so on and so forth. So we can, like I said, we can continue on this. The one thing that I wanted to kind of amplify is this is a really good one. Recommend 5 edgy and forward-thinking tactics that are not listed above. So you can go in and you can drive it in a very different direction. You can say, give me some tactics that are that are alumni based, or that are city based, or they're rural, like all those things that you can now push it in a different direction, and you can ask those questions as well. And if we go ahead and do that, it will probably give us some edgy. Okay, here we go. Some VR enrollment experience. That's one. Influencer partnerships. That's another one that's not traditionally done, where you're partnering with young influencers or alumni that are currently enrolled to kind of create authentic content. Think Mr. Beast, for example, if you happen to be around DC, or other local influencers or folks or alumni that are social media influencers. Things like gamified engagement campaigns, AI-powered personal assistants. That's another one. And we'll talk about that in like the future session 5. All right, so let's go back in here. We talked about progressive prompting. We saw an example of that. But in ChatGPT, you don't have to you don't have to provide all this context over and over again, right? Think about you don't have to write these prompts and provide the context. Think about custom instructions. There's a feature in here called custom instructions. And let me open that up. And we say personalized ChatGPT. This is custom instructions in here. And essentially what I've told ChatGPT, I've told it, hey, my name and bio, here's my name, here's my bio. Here's some of my preferences, and here's kind of what I'm trying to focus on. And then here's my writing style and how I'd like to ChatGPT to respond. So every single time when I start a conversation, I don't have to put this stuff in. It already has that. So think about it very similar to, I don't know if you've seen 50 First Dates, where Drew Barrymore loses her short-term memory, and every single day is a new day. She thinks she's waking up in the same day over and over again. And Adam Sandler makes a tape for her to basically wake up every single morning, look at that tape for 5 minutes, and it's a compilation of her life over the past years. And now she's brought back up, right? She understands the context. So that's exactly what custom instructions are for ChatGPT, right? Is this ability to erase the amnesia because it starts from scratch every single time. And we did take a look at that and kind of those custom instructions there. So if you have it, that's another way that if you pay for ChatGPT, you get those custom instructions as part of your kind of subscription there. Now, remember, okay, we can only add one of those custom instructions, but what happens if you need specialized instructions and you need specialized kind of instructions for different things, right? You're like, I'm not always writing for myself or my institution. You can put the tone of voice of the institution here, but you're not writing for that. You're writing for whatever, for something else. And this is where the next thing, like GPTs, and this is a feature that ChatGPT has added, where you come in here and you have, let's see. So when you create, when you write, all right, where are my GPTs? Because I'm zoomed in. All right, let's see if we can find it. Here we go. So I had all my history in here, but when I kind of refresh, I have a whole bunch of stuff in here, and they're called GPTs. So think about this as personalized versions of ChatGPT where they can do very different things, right? Think about them as like mini applications of ChatGPT. And it has a store or a GPT. I don't think it's not a store. It's more of a kind of exploration page in here because you don't really pay for them. But think about it as a GPT store. It has a bunch of stuff that's already there that people have created, and then you can create your own as well, right? So you can create, different GPTs on your own. But there's a whole bunch that are created in there, and I create my own GPTs for very specific things around Element, for example. And here's you can create them very, very quickly, but this is not really about creating GPTs because we don't have a lot of time. But I just wanted to show you that if you want now, the next level is creating GPTs around your skills on this. Maybe other people have created them and you can just use them by having a link to them. But in this case, you can come in here and rather you can create as many of those custom instructions as you want, and you put the information in here. And then you can give it different kind of content that it has access to as well. So custom GPTs is a whole thing in itself, and we're not going to touch too much on that today, but you can use them for sure by just going and exploring different ones in here. And in this case, I can start my conversation here, or I can go ahead and use one of my built GPTs that I've created for a whole bunch of other things in here as well. So that's a really, really good way to go in and have custom GPTs for your institution. That's a admissions advisor custom GPT, for example, or a financial aid advisor custom GPT. So this is the custom chatbots that you're building in there. But again, they live under OpenAI, right? And we'll talk more about how do you bring those to your data and so on and so forth. All right. So the last part that we're going to touch on is this idea of working with data, right? So how do you work with data? And we talked about this before, but the most powerful language for working with data today, I would say it's not Python or SQL, it's actually English. So when we think about how that works, sorry about that. So when we think about how that works, ChatGPT has a feature that's called advanced data analysis, right? And it's really, really powerful, and it's kind of baked in, and it's called code interpreter, right? Code interpreter, it's writing code for you in order to do data analysis as part of that. So remember when we went in here and we went to exploring some of those GPTs. One of them was data analyst. So let's open that. I'm going to start a conversation with this data analyst, but you don't have to do that, right? So you don't have to start that conversation. You can, let me see. All right, here we go. So in this case, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger in here, but I'm going to grab an Excel file. And this Excel file is a sample data set that I have used for my enrollment analytics class over the past couple of years. So we do an enrollment analytics class, and part of that is well, actually, a lot of the things that we were teaching 2 years ago as part of that class now can be done with ChatGPT. So that's why we're kind of talking through this. So this is an anonymized data set. So it's an anonymized, there's no student's name, there's no email addresses here. So it's just an anonymized, data set. And we'll talk more about some of the security components next time. But there's a way with ChatGPT, with the paid versions, that they don't really train on your data, right? So it's very secure and you don't have to worry about kind of uploading anything that's not possible, that's going to leak out, because they have the same exact security components as your Microsoft cloud or Google Cloud and so on and so forth. So anyway, so I want to go back here. So we have this data set. This is perhaps something that you're doing some analysis on it. You're exporting it from your CRM, you're exporting it from your SIS, but you have things like application statuses, apply dates, and then we want to actually use this in our in ChatGPT. So we can now upload a file in here, and I can actually go ahead and upload that file. And I'm calling it, let's see, I'm going to open it up. It's my Tonka enrollment analytics data set. So I'm going to load it in there, and then I have it. You can see it's an Excel spreadsheet that I had, and I'm going to say, if we go back to here, we can do some data analysis, what we're calling like exploratory data analysis. So we can figure out what's happening underneath the data. So let's go back to that and let's do some, can you let me know what, okay. Can you analyze this file and give me some summaries? I can do exploratory data analysis. So this I just came up with that. All right. So it's saying, let's start by loading the file. And it's actually pulling all the content of that file. But what you're seeing here is this analyzing component, right? So this analyzing part, it's actually generating code, and it's analyzing it, and now it's giving us that information. So it's saying there is 10,000 entries in there. There is 105 columns, a variety of information, includes demographic data, city, state, zip code, country, along with academic records like ACT, SAT. Data types are primary floating points. So anyway, so it does a little bit of that. But then when you look over here, it's saying preliminary observations, there's mixed data types, there's missing data, next steps, data cleanup, summary statistics. So let's do summary statistics, right? So let's do summary. And we're not going to spend a lot of time as it does that, but you're going to notice that it has this little thing in here. And when I, when I
The
open
data set
it,
contains 10,000.
when I open this, you can see the code that it's actually generated, right? Because it's not doing that. It's not, the large language model is not doing that. It's using a tool, and that's what ChatGPT, the product, right? It's a product. It's not doing that itself. So here we go. So one of the things that it's doing is doing summaries, and we see academic rank, affinity score. We see high school GPAs, ACT, SATs. And then it's kind of doing it's kind of reading all of the columns and giving us kind of the summary categorical components of each one of those columns in here. Okay, so we can go ahead, and perhaps one of the things we can ask it is like, how, can you analyze the application submissions and build a forecasting model? So it can actually build that for us as well. So in this case, it's saying, okay, I'll need to find understand the column in the data set. So let's begin by identifying relevant columns, because we told it application submissions, it's actually came back and said, hey, there's multiple application type dates or columns. Do you want the apply date, the accept date, application decision date, or enrollment date? And then here's how we can proceed, right? So let's start by examining the apply date. Sure, let's do apply date. So you can see how it's guiding you through as an analyst and basically telling you, okay, here are some of the things that we're going to do. It's saying, first, let's convert the apply date column to a date time format, and then check if there's any missing values. It did that already, and it's telling you all the different steps that it's going through and doing. Now, I know we only have a couple more minutes in here as part of this webinar, but I wanted to show you this because this is really, really important. And we can, hopefully we can go a couple more minutes over. We're recording this, so if you have to drop off, that's okay. But I do have a few extra minutes to kind of go through and showcase how this, can help you around that data analysis component. All right, so here we go. It built some charts for us. It built a bar chart. There's some observations. And again, because I'm not saying that you should just hand everything off here, but I'm showing you some of the capabilities. Oh, literally, we have like 5 minutes to do this. So if we have a little bit more time, we can methodically go through it and provide a little bit more context on what we're trying to achieve. Here's the columns. This is how we calculate it, and this is the forecasting components. So it's asking us to continue. Let's say proceed, and it will go ahead and start building that that prediction for us, right? It's saying, would you like to proceed with building a forecasting model? And if so, do you have a specific time frame in mind for the prediction? Example, prediction monthly applications for the next year. All right, so we'll continue this later, but I just wanted to show you how this LLMs and ChatGPT specifically can work around this specific area. I do have in kind of the spirit of learning and the spirit of skills, I have a podcast called Generation AI, and it's called generationaishow.com, where we talk a lot about, AI specifically to higher education, what's happening in the world, what are some of the techniques, and so on and so forth. There's episode 4. It's all about kind of the AI toolkit essentials for 2024, key tools and skills. We have a lot of links in that episode notes that you can go in and take a look. So you can certainly go ahead and do that. And here is that QR code if you are going to need it again, if you can snap a shot of it. But that's all that we have for today. I think, man, with only 1 minute, 1 minute to spare. Wow. Well, not actually 1 minute over.
Wow, Artis, you brought the heat in the skills session. Thank you so much, man, for your expertise and your creative way of demonstrating everything from just the raw capabilities of the LLM to the anatomy of a prompt, to the use of data. That was, especially from an enrollment management perspective, big when you're talking about taking big data and trying to get some assistance in translating that. So to the audience, we want to thank you and express appreciation for letting us go over a little bit, but also just sitting in as you try to close your classes out. For those who are in the enrollment management world, I know we've got some our K-12 friends online as well. Look in the chat and please complete that right now, the evaluation. We use that to help inform the design of the future sessions, and we want to know areas that you'd like to see more emphasis upon, as well as directionality, keeping in mind that the next session is going to be AI ethics. Then the final session is going to be AI applications. The AI applications piece is going to look at some case studies, but allow us also to return to some of those areas in this discussion that you'd like to learn more about. A quick snippet about the next session. So the AI ethics session is going to cover the rapidly emerging ethical questions that cause both excitement and concern for successful integration in a manner that positions the enrollment leader for well-informed inquiries when engaging higher education leadership in terms of new directions we need to be going. We heard a little while ago across our Kentucky state partners that we're navigating through, one of the most challenging enrollment times possible. This next session is going to give us a chance to kind of think about what this all means from an ethics standpoint and how AI will come forward. So from here, we're going to consider things at 3 different levels. We're going to look at the global, domestic, and then the industry level to ensure that integration of decisions that evaluate necessary desirability, feasibility, and viability imperatives as you move forward. So we're really, really excited about that next session. Thank you all very much. Thank you for completing the evaluation. And artists, we're so happy to have you in the state of Kentucky and partnering with us as we go along this great admissions redesign journey. You all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next Thursday here at 3 o'clock for AI Ethics. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.